everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after a loss by the Winnipeg Jets. One that was maybe a little bit unexpected after the way that the Winnipeg Jets had been playing defense and the kind of game that they had patterned during their time at home. But I will say this. Go back. You can go watch the show the last time that the Utah Hockey Club was in town. And I gave a lot of credit to Andre Tourigny, who I thought built a really, really good game plan against the Winnipeg Jets, did a good job of shutting the Winnipeg Jets down, scoring that time. Just a team that can't really score, especially when you don't give them opportunities. Now, the Winnipeg Jets, for massive swaths of this game, just had their defensive game on lockdown. I mean, at one point, I'll give you a little hint, but where we're going for keg save of the game happened halfway through that first period on a 2-on-1. We'll get back to that later. But outside of that, I didn't see a lot of chances. And then all of a sudden, the grade A's kind of started coming in off some mistakes that were made on the back end. Now, we'd love to just chalk this up to saying, a couple bad plays, whatever, no big deal. This is just unlike the Winnipeg Jets. I wouldn't do that. I mean, I take a look at how this Utah Hockey Club team has played the Winnipeg Jets twice, and what I see is a team that's sent out with a really good game plan that did not allow the Jets to get that forecheck going, and it did not allow them to get that churn going, and it led to the Jets making mistakes at their own blue line. Because if you can, it's not easy. I haven't seen many teams do it this year, but if you can turn the Jets' aggression in the offensive zone against them, that's what it leads to. It leads to opportunities going the other way. So just quickly, I'm going to get into this and tell you what I thought Andre Tourigny and his hockey club did well here tonight before we bring Ken in. But the Jets like to cut the ice in half. So if you're the guy on the opposition, you've got the puck behind your net and you pass it up the boards. The Jets like to cut the ice in half, so the only place to go with that puck as they pressure you is to chip it up the boards. Their defensemen get really aggressive. They hold the puck in. Next thing you know, you turn it over. Now the Jets have the puck, and they're really good once they have the puck at churning and moving around, moving it up high to the D, along to the boards, grinding in behind the net. They just really, really own the boards in the offensive zone. The issue was the Utah Hockey Club wasn't doing that. They would move the puck in that direction, but then they would move it either just into the middle of the ice past where the Jets were cutting the ice in half, or just reverse it down to their defensemen and get it going out the other side. And that was really, really effective at taking away the pressure that the Winnipeg Jets had up high. The other thing that the Utah Hockey Club, I thought, did really well tonight, it was kind of like looking in a mirror for the Winnipeg Jets, because they protected the guts of the ice really, really well. But they also did so in a way that is very different from a lot of the other teams that you've seen the Winnipeg Jets play. Now, if you think about this, when the Jets defend, and they defend well, they protect the guts of the ice. But when the puck goes up to the defenseman on the opposition team, the forward is out on that guy right away, taking away the shooting lane, trying to make sure that shot doesn't get through. But more than that, trying to force him off the middle of the blue line to the outside of the ice and then trap him along the boards there, or give him no other recourse other than to try and throw the puck in across the boards. And then you got guys like Josh Morrissey who are really good at seeing when that's coming, jumping up, and that ring around the boards ends up being a turnover. The Jets, so good at that. What I saw tonight from the Utah Hockey Club is, while they were good at protecting the guts of the ice, they weren't like the other team the Jets play, where they just collapse all five guys into the middle of the ice and let the Jets move it around until they make the mistake. They left the four guys back and got that top forward to be very, very aggressive on the blue line. I think it caught the Winnipeg Jets off guard. I don't remember seeing teams defend them the way that Utah did this year, but it forced mistakes. And like you so often see happens with the Winnipeg Jets, when they force in the defensive zone, if they are able to force and turn the puck over, it's usually an odd man rush going the other way. We're just not used to seeing it because it hasn't happened to the Jets that often. It happened to the Jets tonight. Now, I'm not saying that Dylan Sandberg's 2 turnovers at the blue line were the best hockey played, but they are hockey responding to pressure coming from a team that was not willing to sit back and let the Jets just throw the puck around the boards in their zone until they made a mistake. This was a high pressure defense by the Utah Hockey Club, but it was also a very calm, under pressure defense when they had the puck and they were trying to get it out of their own zone. This is the second time I've seen this from this team against the Winnipeg Jets. So yes, there's issues. Lowry was out. Their lines were kind of all over the place. There's a million different things that we'll get into about this Jets game and, where things could have gone wrong. But discount at your own peril, trying to suggest that the Jets just came out entirely flat in this game. This is Andre Tourigny showing you how good of a coach he is and how he can build a game plan for his team. Because I'm telling you right now, go back and look. I know the Jets won it, but go back and look at the last time these two teams played, and you're going to see a Jets team that was red hot at that team have the exact same problems they had on this night. It just didn't end up showing up at the end on the scoreboard. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music for his take on the whole thing. Here comes Kenny, folks. Kenny, you're putting us in a real tough spot here because usually I'm the brains and you're the beauty. But after taking a puck to the face, it's hard for you to claim that title here tonight. So I'm going to have to be both on this night. Great. Don't worry, I'll try to carry it. But even then, if this is the idea of beauty, I sure haven't pulled it off in my outfit. Nothing against the Tamarack shirt. I love it, but we both look a lot better in our Vittorio Rossi gear. So if you want to look better than Kenny and Renny are looking tonight, you know what to do. Head on down to Corden Avenue, walk into Vittorio Rossi, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will do you up right. Ken, let's get right into it. Hit the buffet. What did you see in this game tonight?
Yeah, I saw a lot more in the post-game commentary than I saw in the game itself, Sean. We'll get to that in a minute, but in terms of the game itself, I think you captured the spirit of the thing pretty well here. Jets pretty close to a no-show, quite frankly. There's no sugarcoating that's going to be happening here. This was one of their worst games of the year, if not the worst game of the year. I guess you could make the argument that the game in LA where they only had 14 shots in the game was worse, but I would counter that, when you consider the circumstances of today, the Jets feeling really good about themselves, thinking, no big deal. We got goalied on Saturday. Just show up and respond to start a week against 3 Central Division opponents. And they, barely got off the bus, it seems, again, in terms of using a hockey term. Didn't like the speed, didn't like the effort, didn't like the, puck management. Didn't like the way that they put their, line mates, teammates, defense partners in bad spots during the game. Didn't like the inability to get to the net. And, again, they, score a couple goals in the third period to make the score look a little bit more respectable. But Sean, to me, no excuse for the effort. Scott O'Neill called it a horse, what effort, and he was bang on. I don't know, we're gonna spend an hour breaking it down, but I think that assessment, as blunt as it was very accurate. Didn't like the team, didn't like the team defense as a whole. Didn't like the inability to generate. And again, this is, we've often mentioned we'll mention the statistics here, but Sean, this is a game where the statistics do lie. The 5-on-5 natural stat trick has the Jets with 6 high danger chances for compared to 4 for Utah Hockey Club. Expected goals, the Jets, in the expect to win-o-meter, they have them at 1.89 expected goals for versus 1.43 expected goals against, and I don't see that being the case. This was a one-sided hockey team dressed up as a close game in terms of where I saw it. Jets generated very little. And yeah, I mean, they disrupted the fact that, disrupted the fact that the Jets were able to keep the game close while not really even being in the game is kind of how I saw it. I don't think this was, I thought that Connor Ingram looked shaky, Sean, in the first period. The Jets generated very
And
little against him for sure. I mean, squirting, the Nino Niederreiter goal squirts through the 5-hole. I would even go back to the second period. David Gustafson with the breakaway. Sorry, this was late in the first. Bursts through, really good burst. He kind of flubbed his shot, but it goes through the 5-hole and squeezes one leg of the pad and then kind of just slides through on the side. But Jets didn't go to the hard areas, Sean, quite frankly. They didn't go to the hard areas, and when you don't go to the hard areas, it's hard to score, even when you have a lot of offensive weapons. Dylan Sandberg's been, like we've talked about a lot. I mean, you and I are in agreement. He's been their second best defenseman this year, and that's, no knock on Neil Pionk, who's put up a great number of points and been very good when Dylan Sandberg has been in the lineup. But Sandberg today was not, again, 2 tough plays. And I know what you were saying, Sean. I thought he had a little bit more time on the first bobble than maybe he thought. But I also don't love the spot that Neil Pionk put him in with the rim around. That whole exchange, like Sandberg, the pass, the D to D was sort of disrupted, and Pionk sort of throws it deep and looked like Scheifele might take it, and then he left it, and then Sandberg's like, oh crap, now there's a guy on me, and it looked like he had a little bit more time. But again, it's easy for me to think that he had more time on my couch compared to the guy on the ice with a guy coming right at you. So, again, the second one causing the 3-on-1, I mean, that was kind of just a tough play. But again, people are saying, oh, well, if that was Logan Stanley, you'd be going crazy. Well, guess what? Dylan Sandberg has a string of great, exceptional play on his resume this year. That's why he gets the benefit of the tout more than some other players might. Now, this was Dylan Sandberg's worst game of the year. I'm comfortable saying that. But here's the thing. When you only play one bad game in, 40 plus,
you get a excuse.
30 plus,
you get a hall pass.
You do. So, but again, the thing, I'm not pinning this on Dylan Sandberg. He still kind of came back, got an assist, made a really smart play on the DeMello goal. Again, it just, those were 2 plays that he probably doesn't make a whole lot of times during the course of the year. So we won't spend a whole lot of time on that. I mean, Kyle Connor's been the Jets' best forward this year, Sean. He's got 60 points. He didn't generate very much today. That's also a fact. I mean, I'm not blaming Kyle Connor that they lost, but I mean, these are 2 of the Jets' best players during the course of the season, and neither one of them had their best effort. And that's to say the Jets had a lot of passengers in this game. They haven't had a lot of games where they had a lot of passengers. Tonight was one of them, and we'll dig in a little further on that. But that's sort of where I'm at. Connor Hellebuyck is not to blame in this game for me. I don't think there were any real softies out there by any stretch of the imagination. He had been absolutely dynamite. 4 goals allowed in his previous 4 starts. He kind of got hung out to dry today for me. That's kind of what I saw in front of him.
Well, he got hung out to dry. There's only 1 goal in that game that I think that he just really had no chance on. I think this game is a good example of what it looks like. To me, this game is an example of why the Winnipeg Jets as a team should be given credit for what Connor Hellebuyck is doing this year and why I keep coming back to this. Because when's the last time you saw the Jets allow a goal where a team got to pass the puck 1, 2, 3 times and all of a sudden there's a wide open net and it's in the back of the net, right? Connor Hellebuyck usually doesn't have to face those situations that a lot of other goaltenders have to face a lot more often than he does. I think that at least when you're talking about the natural stat trick numbers, the one thing that did track for me was the 4 high danger chances for Utah. I didn't see a lot of high danger chances other than that. I saw Connor Hellebuyck stop 1 in the first period. And other than that, it looked like for the most part, all of the high danger chances that came against him after that, he led in this game. So I don't blame Connor Hellebuyck for this loss at all. He was put in, some pretty high shot volume situations. But I am also going to say, if we're going to sit here and consistently night in and night out talk about him being the best goaltender in the world, and rave about his numbers, if we are going to rave about those numbers that are quite often earned behind an ironclad, airtight defense that rarely lets much in the way of good opportunities against them, then this is one of those nights where the Jets could have used a goaltender to bail out the mistakes that they made in this game, and that just didn't happen in this game tonight. I'm not saying that that doesn't make it Connor Hellebuyck's fault. He was put in a bad spot in those things, but the magic of Connor Hellebuyck was definitely not relevant in this game. Ken, are you going to say? Do you take any issue with my breakdown of Andre Tourigny's game plan, which I think looked very similar to the last time these two teams played? Are you going to give any credit to the Utah Hockey Club on this night? Or was this
sure.
just the Jets
No,
not
God,
showing up?
no, God. I mean, yes, they made the Jets look bad, and they did that by attacking them. They were in attack mode all game. I mean, in terms of creating, they got in their face. They did the things that were necessary. So I'm with you. I mean, you were on this right away. Obviously, they played the Jets tight in the first meeting. I agreed with you then, and they probably were a little bit better. And I would say, a little bit more opportunistic maybe than they were in that first meeting of the season back in Winnipeg. So no, I mean, Tourigny did a great job. I mean, the thing about Utah, this is, they're a team that was really good at the start of last year. They wilted down the stretch and they were in the kind of embryonic stages of trying to do what the Jets were doing, way back in the hot tub time machine, when they were this big skill team that figured out, oh, holy smokes, actually we got to check if we want to win, even though we have all this young skill. But then in the second half, they kind of abandoned that structural plan, and then they ended up getting waxed a lot. So again, we understand there's a lot of stuff going on off the ice and everything else, and the move and everything too. But this year, they're not getting much better results. But what they are doing is playing a style of play that is more sustainable to longer range success. Now they're going to have to change the mix of the roster probably a little bit more further. But I mean, Bill Armstrong is armed with draft picks and can probably look at some upgrades. It's going to be a fun destination for people to go to. Sean, I mean, you and I were at the first game at Mullet. I wish you and I had been in this game today. I mean, looked like a fun environment. Yes, there's some issues with the rink, and they're working on those, and they're going to fix those things down the road. But they look like a team that people are going to want to play for. I mean, that is a backdrop that's probably going to bode well for them moving forward. But you can't move forward without having the defensive success. And I mean, we talk about leadership. I mean, the Jets didn't have Adam Lowry, and there was no update from Scott O'Neill after the game. I'll get into his injury in a second, but Clayton Keller leaves the game after taking a puck in the face, and he's back on the ice going to the hard areas. Like the place where the Jets had trouble getting to, a guy who had a puck just above his eye, cut him for a bunch of stitches, and he still had blood going throughout the whole game, gets into a physical confrontation with Dylan DeMello and disrupts things enough. And the point shot from Ole Mata goes off the stick of Gabe Vilardi, and it's in the back of the net. Like that's what you're in your meetings tomorrow, and you're Andre Tourigny, and you're saying, hey, you see what your captain just did here? This is what happens when you go to the blue paint. So Jets just didn't do that enough. And then just quickly on Lowry, Sean, no update from Scott O'Neill. It was a strange play, right? So Lawson Krause I think it's an accidental trip, but he sort of trips Lowry. Lowry's ankle goes into the boards funny, but because Lowry pops up so quickly, you notice that it maybe looked uncomfortable and maybe caused some pain, but he's out there the next shift and you don't think anything of it. And all of a sudden the second period arrives and he's not on the bench. He's not on the ice. He doesn't come back. And I mean, we know how tough Adam Lowry is. So, if you're a Jets fan, you're hopeful that it's just a precautionary measure, but man, it's hard to imagine that not being something that might keep him out a little bit of time. But again, we won't know this until, we know a little bit more about the medical report, and we may not hear anything until the morning skate on Wednesday. So, obviously Jets losing Adam Lowry would be a big blow, especially going up in a game against Nathan McKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche. But yeah, we won't know enough about that later, but we'll talk about what happened afterward. But no, to your point about the game plan, awesome game plan and execution of the game plan. Logan Cooley keeping on that 2-on-1 absolute rooftop shot, beauty. They did the hard things, and Jets were not there. They were not at their standard, not even close. And I love the fact that both Dylan DeMello and Nikolai Ehlers were very clear that they weren't up to the standard. And same goes for Scott Arniel after as well.
I mean, the reason I bring it up, the reason I talk about it in situations like this is because to me, again, it's like you'd said, pointed this out the last time they played this team. I think this is Andre Tourigny is onto something with how to handle the pressure that the Winnipeg Jets are constantly able to apply to teams. I think it's maybe a good thing for the Jets that it's happening against a team like the Utah Hockey Club, because I don't know how many times people are like following in that team's wake saying, okay, how did they have success against this? I know it's people's jobs to do that. Someone out there should be watching, but I honestly do think that this is the way that they've played this. It's challenged the Jets, and you can talk about the Jets being, not having their fastball tonight, but the fact of the matter is, really high pressure, fast teams, your job is to slow them down. That's what you do. You've got to slow a team down. The Winnipeg Jets, from what I see, are one of the fastest teams in the NHL, and their speed it's not one of those speed things where they get the puck and they just blow by your defenseman. It's team speed where one guy is on you, and then the next guy is on you, and then the next guy is on you. And that kind of creates a little bit of a bomb. Every time the puck is in your hands, the Winnipeg Jets are on you, and you turn that puck into a little bit of a bomb over and over and over again. And I really do think Andre Tourigny has done a good job diffusing that bomb for his team. And that's why I point things out, because I think Scott Arniel, I'm very interested in the next game that these two teams play. Like, I'm really interested to see that game, because I'm interested to see the game plan that Scott Arniel comes up with, because the Winnipeg Jets team that we have seen, we saw them against Dallas this year. Like, if you're starting to think of all of the teams that you want, the Jets to show up against, right? We saw it against Florida after they had that run-in with Florida. We saw it against Dallas. We've seen it at least once against the Colorado Avalanche. It's going to be interesting to see what we see this time. Haven't seen it yet against the Vegas Golden Knights, but we haven't seen it yet against this Utah team. Utah, if you were to just take the two games that Utah played this year and put them, just play the two games they played against the Winnipeg Jets, who were the top of the league the last time they played and the top of the league now, you would look at the Utah Hockey Club and think that they were a strong playoff contending team in the way they play the Winnipeg Jets. So I'm very fascinated to see what happens coming up next time these two teams play later this week, because I'm interested to see what's kind of game plan Scott Arniel comes up to handle the way that the Utah Hockey Club seems to be able to deflect the pressure off the Winnipeg Jets, and in doing so, slow them down. We should move on to the Lowry thing. Before you do, though, can you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
You bet, folks. For realty, or folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of our fine community, including this podcast.
Okay, let's jump into it. What did you like about where the Winnipeg Jets went with the lines? What were you maybe not the happiest with where the Jets went with the lines?
Yeah, I mean, so, first and foremost, my feelings on, Niederreiter and Nikolai Ehlers. I've been wondering if this might be a combination platter that would be worth investigating, and, they're able to get out there and get a couple things done. Obviously, too, there's lots of people saying, oh, well, hey, there's the Nikolai Ehlers, Mark Scheifele bump. And yeah, you bet that those guys were involved in two goals in the third period. That is 100% accurate. I didn't love Ehlers' game prior to them being put together, but I give Ehlers credit for making things happen in the third. I thought he got his legs moving and was making things happen as the game went on. Scheifele, I think he got caught on the ice for a bit of a long shift on the one. I think it was the Cooley goal. There was a little bit of the disruption there. That line kind of got caught in the offensive zone, thinking they were going to get one more crack at it at the end of the period. That wasn't a good play. And that's one of the reasons why, they've given up some goals in the past, and there's another one at even strength today. The rest of it looked a little bit disrupted to me, or discombobulated, maybe. Quiet game for Perfetti again, Sean, right? I mean, it's another game where it's 12 without a goal now. I didn't see a lot happening there during the game for him. Nemesnikov obviously trying to get his footing in the game. He missed 4, so he's trying to get himself back up to speed. And I just didn't seem like there was a lot of cohesion throughout the Jets lineup, quite frankly, in the game, which is why the changes were made. Some things worked out well, other things, left a little bit to be desired. But to me, that had more to do with the fact that Jets didn't have a lot moving with their feet. They weren't skating or getting to the areas. And when they're sort of skating in quicksand like that, and then you make a poor decision with the puck in terms of puck management, and it ends up in the back of the net, it sort of compounds some of the problems that were being had. But again, same sort of thing. I mean, the defense pairings were not cohesive, and that sort of led to the changes. And then obviously the Jets are trying to chase some offense. So Pionk goes with Morrissey. There were a couple of bobbles there. And then too, Sandberg, DeMello, it didn't sort of quiet things down the way one would expect. And, the third pairing didn't play a whole lot, Sean, because they were trying to chase the game a little bit in that situation. So again, there just wasn't a whole lot cooking for the Jets, but what was cooking in the third was, yes, Scheifele and Ehlers getting things going, Ehlers and Niederreiter getting things going. Great job by Scheifele to get to the net in a game where he wasn't all at his best either. Still went to the net, provided a screen on the DeMello goal, then got himself an assist on the other one. So again, try to get involved as best you can. I mean, I liked Scheifele going at Kesserling late in the game, Sean. Yes, the game was over, but hey, if you're going to see another team on Friday, let them know that will not be allowed, or that will not be going unnoticed, I guess. So that's sort of what I saw. Did you see any of the chemistry or things that you want to see more of?
Well, I mean, I'll give the payoff to those two players going together. I know Kenny's been looking to see that for a long time, trying to see Nick Ehlers alongside Nino Niederreiter. I honestly think both those players would play, great with pretty much anyone that they would be with. I think the third line, I've said this time and time again, I think it works. Nikolai Ehlers, they're constantly searching to find someone for him. Again, I think, I've made my feelings clear on this the last 2 shows. I think they're going to go to the trade deadline to try and find help to wake him up. I think that this is just temporary, but it did pay off, no doubt, putting those two together. And for all the people who have been wanting to see it, it paid off to have Nikolai Ehlers playing alongside Mark Scheifele. And hey, if you're looking to pay off high interest credit cards or debt, we suggest you go talk to our friends at Cambrian Credit Union about their payoff loan. They can show you how taking a loan to pay off your debt actually gets you debt-free faster, and you can save thousands of dollars. Go to cambrian.mb.ca to book an appointment online. I mean, I think that that's one thing that you could expect anytime Scott Arniel is looking at getting a boost out of his players. If you're going to take Nikolai Ehlers and put him alongside Mark Scheifele, give him an audition on being like, hey, I'm a first line player, I think you're going to get the pop from him that we saw, right? And someone was talking about, I don't know, they gleaned that from Kevin Cheveldayoff's comments in the intermission, that they got the sense that Nikolai Ehlers is going to test free agency. If you test free agency, he's a point per game player now for the first time in his career so far this season. But B, if you go out and you get given flashes on the first line and you go out and you score, you start building a real good case for your agent to go out and say, look, the guy was a point per game player, and you put him on the first power play and he'll start scoring. And whenever he went and grabbed the player and put him on the first line, he started putting up points as well. This is a guy who's actually better than he looks here, because he's on a line that doesn't really score that often. But anytime you move him anywhere else where you give him, the best of opportunities, he makes the best of those opportunities. So I think if you're Scott Arniel and you jog things up, that's a smart place to go. I do wonder, Ken, this is a scenario by which, how many times has Scott Arniel really pulled out the line blender this year? I think it's 3 times or something like that, maybe 4. I think it's only 3. And he does it in games where, he feels like they're entirely flat. And I get it. It's a coach's job to shake things up and get things moving. I just wonder, especially in entirely breaking up the first line the way that he did, like Gabe Vilardi did not look like he accomplished much of anything when they moved things around. And I actually think Kyle Connor got pretty darn quiet as well when the lines got broken up there. So I don't think, it played for Nick Ehlers. It played for Niederreiter. I don't think it played for 2 of your top 3 goal scorers on this team. And I would say this, I question the idea of the Jets haven't been off very often this year, off to the point that you would say, let's just jumble up these lines. I know that he's done it twice before. I thought that in this game, it's like, well, are you going to do this every single time they have an off night, a team that almost never has an off night? And to me, I don't think, other than the glaring mistakes that were made on the goals, I actually really, really like the way the Jets defended in their structure tonight. They were making life miserable for that team out there. And so, Sandberg's 2 mistakes, those end up in the back of the net. One goal's I don't know if it was tipped, but one's from the point. I don't necessarily look at that one and think that that's, entirely terrible or anything like that. And then, one of them is an empty net goal. So I don't look at this night and think that there was a breakdown in the way that the Jets defend. I guess, and maybe, Ken, the answer is the fact that they've only scored 5 goals in their last 3 games. And so the coach is saying, okay, it's time to shake things up. And maybe it's time to let that first line know that they have to get going. I don't look at, I look at this as an example and say, okay, well, if there was a shakeup, then we better see the results in the next game. Like, the message better have been received in the next game, because for the most part, that message did not work out here. If the point of jumbling the lines the way that they did was to create a spark with a bunch of different lines, it did not work in this game, right? Like, we can look in retrospect and say that didn't work for the Winnipeg Jets to go and try that. It got Nikolai Ehlers going, got that one line going, but 2 of your other great scorers really kind of went dormant after this. So this did not work. So maybe we're going to see the Winnipeg Jets come out and absolutely fly against the Colorado Avalanche in their next game. And maybe we'll be able to say, well, the point was made, the point was taken. If we don't play the way that we're supposed to play, our lines are going to get split up, and we don't want that happening. But if that doesn't happen, to me, this is just a move that did not work.
Yeah, I mean, my counter to that, Sean, and again, I'm not, the premise to me is totally fine, but to me, this is not just about today. Like, Scott Arniel made it clear in his pregame interview with Paul Edmonds that, yes, fired up that they got 39 shots, but they didn't make the night difficult enough on Dustin Wolf on Saturday. So I think the breakup is, you want guys to go to the hard areas. And I mean, so like I said, Scheifele is all over the screen in front of Connor Ingram when DeMello scores. So yeah, I mean, he's on the ice for the goal, but I think it's more about some of the things that you want your players to do and maybe those good habits that you want them to get back into. Because, yeah, I mean, most of the time the Jets are going back to their original lines. Now, throwing that into the potential, throwing a wrench into those plans is the unknown around Adam Lowry's status. And, furthermore to that, for folks in the chat room calling for Nikita Chibrikov. Well, Chibrikov left the game on Sunday because he got hurt. He went into the boards crazy. So if a forward recall is required, and yes, the Jets do have Dominic Toninato available if they want to go that route. But I mean, and again, some folks asking about Brad Lambert. Brad is, he's been a little bit quiet lately from folks that I've talked to that were, at recent Moose games. So I don't think it's as simple as that. So, I mean, we're going to see what happens here. But I don't think this isn't a punishment thing. It's wanting to remind the Jets to try to make life a little bit more difficult on the opposition goaltender. I think that's why the shakeups were made today. And yeah, I mean, it worked for one line, didn't really work for the others. But I would also say too, I mean, Sean, that play that Vilardi was involved in with Alex Kerfoot, it's an inadvertent collision that leaves the player shaken up. I didn't feel that Gabe wasn't on his game probably before that, and he definitely didn't really find it after that. There were a couple passes. I mean, you know how good a passer he is. A couple passes in skates and things like that. And again, things happen, but again, there were too many people that were not crisp enough in the game, and when that happens, you're kind of trying to jumble some things together, and that's overly complicated by the fact that one of the most reliable players is not available to them, and there were 10 forwards rolling at one point in the period. So, anyways, we'll see. I'm not trying to overreact here or any stretch, but we'll see what happens. And we've talked about this before. Scott O'Neill prefers continuity, and continuity is generally a better thing. But sometimes continuity isn't available as an option. So, I mean, then you sort of have to mix and match and see if something comes through. And especially too, you got guys coming back. Mason Appleton, maybe he's available as early as Wednesday. I guess we'll see what happens on that front too. But all to say that the Jets probably are going to go back to some of their original ideas, but right now there are a few players that need to get going. So that's also kind of throwing things into a little bit of disruption here.
I just wanted to close out the whole conversation about the switching up the lines and saying that if the Winnipeg Jets didn't get the Pristine Roofing wake-up call there, they probably got it with the comments made by Scott O'Neill after the game. You know what that means? Time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You can call him at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want down at your place for all of your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing at 204-237-7663. They're open for business right now. You have any exterior needs, it can be done right now in the middle of the winter. Even in this frigid, cold weather, it can be done. So get ahead of the curve on that, ladies and gentlemen. If you have work that needs to be done, don't wait for the summer. You can get on it right now. I am thinking in my head, I'd like to get your thoughts on it before I go with mine, but I talked about Dylan Samberg being one of the most difficult things for the Winnipeg Jets to survive in his absence. Over that time, the Jets did go fairly close to 500 in his absence. And since he came back into the lineup, their defensive game outside of tonight, like you said, a one-off for him here tonight, but their defensive game has been absolutely tight as a drum since he came back. So I think that that's analysis that ages well. Where do you see Adam Lowry in order of importance, or how big of a miss from the lineup do you think he is, Ken? How hard is it for him, for the Jets to get by without a player like that?
Yeah, I mean, the Jets have nobody like him. I mean, there's that, and no offense to anyone else. So this is how I would put it. So you have the defensive awareness would be in a similar vein with David Gustafsson, but you don't have anywhere near the same physical play. And also, too, I mean, Adam Lowry is up to 11 goals and David has none. I mean, so you don't have don't have the same level of offense, and you don't have the physical nature involved, and you don't have the, again, the skating. Probably Adam has the edge there too, but Adam's also a great face-off guy. He's one of the top penalty killers over the bench, over the boards. So the Jets have some reliable, responsible guys that you can plug and play, but you don't have anyone who brings the total package the way that Lowry does. So again, I'm not here saying they can't replace Lowry, and they did replace Kyle Connor and Gabe Velarde offensively last year. I'm not necessarily going down that road, but what I'm in agreement with you of, it's very similar to the case of Samberg, because very few players on the Jets lineup bring that kind of package to the table. And again, the timing could not be worse for the Jets, even if this happens to be a one-game absence for Adam Lowry. It's the worst time for it to come, because it comes against, the potential MVP. I mean, we've been talking hard trophy candidates a lot, and Hellebuyck remains a very worthy candidate. But Nathan MacKinnon is right there also. I mean, with a Draisaitl in that discussion. So, and just when you think of how good a job that Lowry's line did against MacKinnon when the Jets were able to beat the Avalanche in Winnipeg recently, the Avalanche are going to be hungry. Never mind the fact they lost to the Wild this afternoon in a game today also. So I would say it would be very high up on the list for me, Sean. And Sean, what that means and what we've heard Arniel talk about countless times this year is that the Scheifele line wants the tough matchups against the opposition's most skilled players, not just, that it's not just Lowry's line having to go against McKinnon. And McKinnon is a bad example because much like Connor McDavid, those guys can play 25 plus minutes a game. So you need more than one line that can go out against them anyway. But what this means, Sean, is that Mark Scheifele is going to see a lot of Nathan McKinnon on Wednesday night, and he better be ready to roll, because that's a tough, if you're not ready to roll and you're not at the absolute top and peak of your game, Nathan McKinnon can make you look silly along with some of the guys who are skating with alongside of him.
You know what I saw tonight? I saw that life was not miserable for the Utah Hockey Club. And that is something that Adam Lowry does, is he makes life miserable for the opposition that he's playing against. You bring up a good point about Nathan McKinnon, because, if you're going to go Scheifele straight up against him, Scott Arniel's talked about it before. The way that they plan to handle him is to have not just Scheifele, but Lowry as well, and then sometimes throw Kupari into there to really just try and kind of slow him down and do it with the team kind of attitude. This to me is a massive. So I think, the toughest guys that you could get, the toughest guys, it would be hardest to get by out of the lineup. I think you would put Connor Hellebuyck at number one, no doubt, because they haven't won a game without him in net so far this year. I think losing Josh Morrissey
they won 3. Comrie's first 3 starts.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. It's been however many straight. Anyway, so losing Hellebuyck would be tough. I think the next person after that would be Josh Morrissey. And then I think after that, it's actually pretty close. Well, and probably not, because they don't have a scoring centerman. So I think it's Mark Scheifele after that. Then I think it's Adam Lowry. And then I think you're going to a guy like Dylan Sandberg. And then you're moving along to the Kyle Connors of the world after that. Even when Nick Ehlers was out, you could see how things got a little bit difficult for them. But Adam Lowry is just so much part of the game plan, because he neutralizes so much of what happens on the other side of the ice. And I said this before, and I'll say it again, and I think we saw the example of it tonight. The Winnipeg Jets dominance is a delicate ecosystem. When they are rolling on you, we can see what they do the last number of games. You wonder how things end up going in the other direction. It just takes, 5, 6, 7 more zone exits where you don't crumble underneath their pressure to get it down the other way. And now all of a sudden you're forcing the Jets to defend, and you're in their zone, and you're making them defend that much more. And I think that's just how you slow them down. I am not surprised that the game went in the direction it went tonight with Adam Lowry gone, because Adam Lowry is one of those guys who kills plays in his own zone, gets the puck down in the other end of the ice, and then just absolutely wallpapers and grinds people into dust in their own zone, and just leaves teams exhausted, and quite often icing the puck. And so then you're just kind of winning. It's like winning that field position battle in football, right? Like you're just always keeping it in the other team's zone at all times. That's what Adam Lowry does. So I think, I don't know, Ken. I took a look at it. Maybe it's just a tweak. Maybe it's a couple of weeks. I don't know. But I don't like the idea of the Winnipeg Jets without Adam Lowry, because as their captain, I think he's done so much to get this team playing with the right mindset, playing the right way. This Winnipeg Jets team is clearly a committed group, and I think the captaincy has been a big deal on that. But the other part of that is he just leads the way every single night and will embarrass you with your lack of effort, your lack of grind, and your lack of commitment if you do not follow in his footsteps. He's the type of not only hard to play against player that is going to make things tough, but as a culture carrier. I'm not saying the Jets don't have the strength of character in that room without him, but boy, oh boy, he sets the standard 100 miles tall, and I don't think you can set it as high without him in that room. That said, maybe we're going to get a chance to see here.
Yeah, and then just one quick thing. I mean, I should say, like, the one thing they do have, and, it's complicated by the fact that Jets are still looking for their 2C and want to find out if Nemesnikov can get back to that role or not. I would say that he has the defensive awareness and the skating ability, and he has a physical edge to his game, but it's not as physical as Adam Lowry. No one on the Jets plays that physical, but they do have someone in Nemesnikov who, can play in a shutdowny kind of role. So I would see that I would think his minutes are going to be elevated as long as his legs can handle it being back, in his second game back from this injury here.
Yeah, you know what? Jack here says 31 teams would trip over each other to add Lowry. They were tripping over him. I still can, even more so than the Winnipeg Jets keeping Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuyck when we were hearing the idea that they were heading out of town. I'm blown away to this day that Adam Lowry signed with the Jets early before going to market, because I think that he would have had so many suitors, so many different choices, and so many different contract offers. And I think, Ken, that he left. I said it at the time. You can go look at our Kenny and Renny special, which I actually think, Ken, if we were ever, putting up a podcast for an award, if there was some kind of award, that was one of my favorite shows where we had him on, we had Elliot on telling us all the stuff that was going in the background, and then we broke it down afterwards. I said it then, I'll say it again. I think he left at least $1 million on the table, if not more. And I think as this contract is going on, he's for sure left more than $1 million on the table. That to me is maybe the best piece of work Kevin Cheveldayoff has ever done, because even with a guy like Josh Morrissey, he got the guy going on the upside, right? I think, right there would have to be Connor Hellebuyck, because I think at the money he's making right now, it's a steal of a deal for the best goaltender in the game. But like, to get Adam Lowry to go early the way that he did and not have him listen to anyone else and do it with a sweetheart of a deal for the Winnipeg Jets was some of the tidiest GM work I have ever seen Kevin Cheveldayoff make. And some of the look around the league, there's going to be guys who are taken for a bargain, but Adam Lowry is a bargain night after night after night.
Right. And then, to reinforce what you said, for those folks who are new listeners that maybe didn't watch the pod at that point, I mean, Elliot basically was telling us live on the show that GMs were calling him saying, no, it can't be happening, right? No, this report can't be accurate that he's actually signing.
He said he got it wrong. Yeah. He said he had like 9 GMs reach out because Elliot broke the news.
Right. Yeah.
And he said, no, you're not right. He's not going. And like, there were so many people lined up and waiting to go for him to hit the market, because hey, I forget who I put the comment up from, but 31 other teams would want him. 31 teams in the NHL would be markedly better if they had Adam Lowry on their lineup the way that the Winnipeg Jets have. An absolute secret weapon for this team. Ken, before we do get to the awards, I wanted to ask this. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, Cranley says, if/when the Jets' first line gets shut down, their third line is tired for matching the other team's first line, who scores for the Jets? This, to me, I think people got a little bit out of themselves over these last number of games with the new lines suggesting that, okay, there we go, Lowry with Ehlers is, absolutely done. I've got someone who's just like texting or keeps messaging me all the time saying that this whole thing's figured out. People talked about how, Cole Perfetti was, a totally different player alongside, Niederreiter and, going to the net more and all the offensive opportunity there. And then when we take a look at it, this team has actually had a hard time scoring for the last 3 games. The magic that these lines were supposed to be really hasn't turned into that. I think, we're about to find out with the loss of Lowry what it means to lose some center depth. And clearly when Nemesnikov was gone, we got a little bit of that as well. But I would suggest at this stage, what we're seeing is making it obvious, beyond obvious, that Kevin Cheveldayoff cannot stand pat. I know that some of the people were saying in here they think that the problem is solved, and we were talking about the idea that the Jets wouldn't have to go looking for anything. I don't buy that 1 second. I think what we're seeing here is a very, very obvious suggestion that the Jets have to add center depth before they go into the playoffs, because you lose Mark Scheifele, you lose Adam Lowry. I don't see how this team gets by without them.
Yeah, no, they need to upgrade at those important positions, and I still think they need to upgrade on defense. Even though like we've said, Neil Pionk has played his best hockey beside Dylan Sandberg. So, but at the bare minimum, the Jets need I think a little bit more physical, a Luke Shen type of player to play on the third pairing. It doesn't have to be Luke Shen. but he would be someone that would have some appeal based on the championship pedigree and the physical nature that he plays with. But yeah, I mean, offensively, like it sounds so crazy to say this, Sean, because we talk about it all the time. The Jets are one of the highest scoring teams in the NHL, but there have been times when they go cold, it takes a while. And, the other part of that too, and this is the third time in 10 games now, Sean, that the Jets weren't able to draw a single power play in a game. So they've got this big weapon here. And, Scott O'Neill has repeatedly said it in the last 2 weeks or so, that other teams are trying to be more disciplined against them so that they don't give the Jets a chance to get back into some games with the power play. So what that means is the Jets got to move their feet to try to draw more penalties, and whether it's stick penalties that you cause or things that you do with your feet to put the defender in a bad position that he makes you haul him down or hook you or slash you or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I don't think there was ever a doubt. Again, even when we were talking about Lowry as a potential 2C, the Jets were still going to have to add somebody on either in the top 6 on the wing or someone at 2BC or 3C, whatever you want to call them, that was going to chip in some offense. And this goes back to our original premise. I mean, we came into the season saying that Cole Perfetti, after signing his 2-year bridge deal, that Cole was going to need to be more than a complimentary scorer. He had 19 last year, so in a top 6 role, Cole needs to be part of the primary scorers. Now that it's gone quiet again in the offensive side, yes, we've talked about some of the improvements in the other parts of the game, but if Cole's not producing, now he's not even not close to a primary scorer. Right now he's struggling to be a complimentary scorer. So again, I'm not saying that he has to be benched or moved down the lineup, but if you want to win 16 games, Cole has to get back to being a complimentary scorer, and the Jets are probably going to need to get somebody to be a primary scorer to help out that top line that the original question was asking about. So Ehlers definitely is a primary scorer, even though he doesn't get a lot of first-line minutes, but he gets first power play time, and he's been a point-a-game player 40 and 39 games. So he's doing his part on that front. But you can't get by with 4 primary scorers. You have to have closer to 6 in that forward group, even though there is forward depth there that is producing at times. So they need to get a bona fide second-line center, whether that's Brock Nelson or somebody of that nature. So Larry, even if, like, I'm not saying Lowry is it, and that's it. If they got to go and get somebody like Brock Nelson, if they want it to be Mikael Granlund, fine. That's an option too. But
I don't think they want Granlund. I don't know that Granlund fits their style of play. Like, do you, honestly?
I talked to some of the guys in Nashville that were around him for a couple of years, and again, I was skeptical. And coming out of that conversation, he's a real digger. He's a defensively responsible person, good forechecker. And in top line minutes that he's played a little bit above his standing, he's been able to produce. So again, is he a massive upgrade from Vlad Nemestikov? I don't know. I see them as similar players now. Who has more offensive upside? That I haven't seen him the last couple of years.
Sure
he would definitely have it, and he's a responsible defensive player. Also, he has experience with a lot of Central Division teams already. So it's a slight upgrade, but I don't know that he's going to be a bona fide scorer in a 4-round playoff series if the Jets happen to go on a run of that nature. So yeah. I think they need to aim higher. To answer your question, I think they need to aim higher. Could he help the Jets? I think so, yes. But I think that they need to aim higher if they're trying to win the Silver Trophy at the end of the year, and they are. So yes, they need to aim higher.
Well, I would say this: the Jets have been trying to handle that 2C issue at the trade deadline for years now, and I would say if you're taking a look at all the guys that they went out to get over the years, Hayes, Stastny, Monahan, he would be the lowest version of that in a year where the Winnipeg Jets have been first more than any other team. Like, if there was ever a year to aim high, this is the year. So right. I agree with you. And I think Brock Nelson kind of fits perfectly with what the Jets do because he's a big grinder. And I think it would just be, the third line is always so hard to handle. The first line is so dangerous and kind of, like striking vipers, you know what I mean? And then you'd get that second line with like the mix of Ehlers' speed and just the kind of the direct. Well, hey, we know what Ehlers looks like with a direct to the net kind of player, the way that Gabe Vilardi works. That's how Nelson plays the game and drives the front of the net. I think that would be a really, really good combination there. Just wanted to touch on this. I always get a little, well, whatever.
And it's not going to be JT Miller for those people in the chat room saying,
yeah,
go after JT Miller. It's not going to be JT Miller.
Journey for Beginners says year after year, you guys, I guess that's you and me, can get stuck on second line center and flame out in 5 instead of bolstering the back end. Pay attention. Last year we called for a 2C, we called for a winger, and we called for help on the back end, as we've called nonstop so far this year, saying that the Jets needed to bolster the back end. So if you're going to criticize what we do, try and be accurate with what you're criticizing. You are telling us that we didn't do something that we've done repeatedly over and over and over again. Ken, going back to the year that they tried to pick up Oleksiak, we were talking about it back then. So this is a big fat swing and a miss for the guy wearing the Athletics baseball cap in the chat room here. Ken, time to get to our Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, there weren't a lot of options in the game, but I think I texted you one during the third period. Josh Morrissey back check on, it was Logan Cooley, a stick lift where looked like it was going to be a potential odd man rush and maybe a tap in, but a good effort play by Morrissey to get back. And, this is one of those games where you could tell everyone was frustrated, and Josh Morrissey again. And he gave Cooley a little bit of a shot after. Cooley looked over his shoulder and he's like, okay, well, fine. But that was my choice. I mean, there weren't a ton of options, but
Nick Ehlers steals the puck on the back check from in behind Connor Hellebuyck. That's my Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game. Just one of the things that Nick did, probably the Jets' best player on this night. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that is the Johnson Group Got You Covered play of the game, earned by Nikolai Ehlers, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnson Group. Ken, what's your TCB lamplighter of the game?
Oh, it's a good question. For me, I'm going to go with I'm going against the grain. I think it's the Cooley goal for me. It's not the game winner, but it's the backbreaker for me. Goal late in the last minute, bit of a schmozzle all around, but it was emblematic of the things that the Jets didn't do when they need to do things better. And Sean, to your point at the start of the show and throughout the first quarter, even when the Jets weren't playing well, they still did a good job of playing that patient game. But in that last 20 seconds of the period, they made a couple of decisions that ended up costing them. And again, great shot. It's 2-on-1. Cooley fakes a shot, buries it. And to me, that was sort of, again, 2-0 deficit is not too difficult to overcome for the Jets. They've done it before this year on multiple occasions. But on this night, it was too much. And that's why I'm going with the Cooley goal as my lamplighter, even though there were, a couple nice goals in the game.
Yeah, I'll go with that as well. But doesn't matter what you think or I think, Ken. Matters what the folks at home think. Share with us your hashtag TCB lamplighter. You're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your own frosty, delicious 8-pack, you know what to do. Head on down to 11290 Kenniston. Join them in their tap room where they've got, I'll start with the salads like Tico was sending me. And if you've seen Tico before, he's a muscle man. So you got to eat like Tico eats. So try some of their salad while you're down there. Of course, try some of their pizza. And they've got all of the beers, all of the great staff, all the great atmosphere. You got to get down to TransCanada Brewing Company like this next person is going to do. And that would be Mike Pajic. Mike Pajic, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email because you are the winner of the TCB lamplighter from our last show. So that's what you got to do. Direct message me. Send me your full name. Send me your email. I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. It is the nectar of the gods. And that brings us to our keg save of the game. What do you got, Ken?
Yeah, I like your choice, but I'm just gonna give a honorable mention. Nick Bukestad had a good chance on Hellebuyck in the first period. I know it was very early, but I thought he played it really well, and it was one of the kind of big and borings that it was probably a tougher save than he made it look. But I'm going with that one, even though I'm going to cede the floor to you, and even though I'm giving a different example, yours is probably right, but I like the mention of that just because it was timely save at that time of the game, also.
Well, if you thought that one was right, you should have gone with it because I'm going with the exact one you're talking about. I
Oh,
thought that was the best save of the game. He makes a
you were
nice kind
arguing
of
with me. You
blocker
were
arm
arguing with
save.
me when I mentioned it.
Oh no, I would. Hey, someone's got to be the contrarian on this show. Well, I guess we've got Bick Ronis there for that, so
He
he's the
sure does.
contrarian on the show. But anyways, that's our hashtag, the keg save of the game. But it doesn't matter what we think. Matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag, the keg save of the game. You are automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be Linda Trudeau. Both Linda and Mike, I think, are previous winners. So the old wheel of fortune landed on each of them and has smiled on them each for the second time this season. So Linda, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I will have the fine folks at the keg send you a voucher, a gift card, $50 gift card to any of the 3 fine keg locations here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we head on down the road?
Yeah, you bet. Folks who were, very kind in the chat room, wondering what happened to me. Unfortunate puck to the face at hockey this week, and was very fortunate that the good doctor Michael Isaac was able to take care and stitch me up here before I made my way to Arizona. So, big shout out to him, Sean. Happy to report, longtime Kenny and Renny listener. So. Fortunate that it was only 2 zippers on the outside, 1 on the inside. Pretty big gash underneath with a deflected puck that snuck its way up the inside the visor. But I've been debating going to the full face mask for quite some time, and fortunately, this was not worse. And had a mouth guard in, so didn't lose any chiclets. But I think it's time to put the old eye-tech or bubble back on. But just wanted to say that was an incredible act of kindness, and we're very appreciative. So.
Well, I like how he pitched to you for me to go to him as well, because I think my lifestyle means I'd be more likely to be a client numerous times in the future. Stitches are old friends of mine from way back, as is the missed tooth that I got from taking a puck to the mouth last year.
And
Maybe I should think about the bubble, but whatever.
that's not your style. And then one other thing too, just quickly,
Yes,
and
get to
we'll
this.
spend a little bit of time. Tom McPhee passed away, I think, earlier today, and obviously some great connections to the Winnipeg Jets franchise. When I was covering the American League, Tom was still scouting, and he was a guy who always, because of his affinity for Winnipeg, and for folks who don't know, he was the head coach for a WHA championship team, and a guy that loved talking about hockey, loved Winnipeg. He was back here for the Heritage Classic, just a huge part of his life. And a lot of us media folks are very familiar with the classic interview that he did with my former Winnipeg Sun colleague Paul Friesen, where he talked about having to bench Bobby Hull in a great confrontation with John Ferguson Sr. The battle on Tuxedo Night. They got a full barn, and I believe he was late for the warm up, and his recollection of that story is one of the all time greats. And Paul still has it on tape, and it's something that he's a guy who was very passionate about the sport. Coached in the American League for a long time, even after being in the NHL. He was a longtime player also. Sean, played for some of the great, the Portland Buckaroos of the WHL, played for the Johnstown Jets, the Dayton Gems, another beauty name. Coached for a long time, coached the Washington Capitals, coached the Winnipeg Jets, coached those early years of the Jets in the NHL after they made the transition, and then he spent a bunch of time in the American League after that. Just a great man, a great person to talk to, and we're sending our best to the McPhee family and anyone who knew him.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well said, Ken. Good note to end on. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. I know it's a little bit later. I know it's a loss. I know the sucky boo-boos may have gone to bed to cry on their oversized pillows. But I will say this before we do get going. If you appreciate the conversations happening in this place, I implore you to, or in this space, I implore you to appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Ferlin, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group, TransCanada Brewing Company, and of course the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We will reconvene and do this all over again on Thursday. Correct, Ken? Thursday?
Wednesday.
Sorry. Yeah, I got my days mixed up. Wednesday. See you Wednesday, everybody. Bye-bye.